Welcome back, Patrick McQueen. The last time we were together, you kind of started to hint about this short-term rental risk. And since we have the Super Bowl coming to Phoenix, I wanted to have you back on and just kind of really educate our audience about short-term rentals. And if you're thinking about either renting a short-term rental, or more importantly, if you're the seller and you're thinking about renting it out from a short-term rental standpoint, like, what do we need to know? And by the way, if you don't know who Patrick McQueen is, I mean, I think everybody in town does know who you are, but real estate attorney extraordinaire and just truly passionate about education and bringing valuable information to the community. So we kind of sync and connect on that. But Patrick, welcome back.
Well, thank you so much. That was a nice introduction. So now everybody needs to prepare to be disappointed. Totally.
All right, let's go. This whole short-term rental thing. What do I need to know?
So literally everything has been turned upside down, turned over, turned around, turned whatever in the short-term rental side. So we used to have a statute here in Arizona that basically said cities, towns, municipalities, etc., governments basically can't do much to regulate short-term rentals. And that was turned around by Senate Bill 1168, which modified this to now provide guidance or permission for municipalities to do some stuff with respect to governing short-term rentals. So now the city of Scottsdale's come out, they've got a new regulation that comes out in January 2023. You have to have a license, you have to do all sorts of background checks on people, you have to have insurance, all sorts of good stuff. So we now have a new statute that says, you know, cities and towns, you got more authority. What also happened, this happened in April, we had a new Arizona Supreme Court decision that came out, and this turned things on its head a little bit as well. It was the Callaway decision, which we've talked about, and the Callaway decision basically said, look, if you're an HOA and you want to restrict short-term rentals or really anything, you really need to look at the amendment versus what's existing, what's on title right now in terms of CC. And you need to make sure that there was something in those original CC&Rs that you can actually amend that makes sense now. And so there's this sort of analysis you have to do between the amendment and the original CC&Rs to see if HOAs can actually amend or address short-term rentals in the first place. So everybody prior to this decision thought that HOAs had all of the power and all of the control, and this may have taken away a little bit. So what we had was, again, with the cities and towns, we had nothing in terms of what cities and towns could do to regulate, and now we have something. And then what we had prior to this year was HOAs being, you know, able to do whatever they want, and now not so much. And so we've had this sort of really interesting dynamic. But right now, what we're getting a lot of questions on relate to the upcoming Super Bowl or some of these upcoming events. I mean, it's going to be a show here in Scottsdale come the end of January, beginning of February, when we have the Waste Management Open and we have the Super Bowl here at the same time. And so what, you know, owners of short-term rentals really need to consider, well, number one is, you know, has my city passed a new resolution? Has my city sort of imposed any new obligations on me as an owner? And maybe they have, maybe they haven't. City of Scottsdale certainly has. It's kind of, you know, they're kind of the leader. It seems to me that, you know, they kind of set a lot of standards and then other people follow, or other municipalities follow. But, you know, what has my municipality done now to restrict this, to get more information from me, to get me to pay them something? What's going on there? And what is it that I can do to protect myself in light of these new regulations and in light of the fact that people are probably going to be coming here to party? And, you know, that just seems like it happened, you know, 10 years ago when we had the Super Bowl, whenever it was. And so what is allowed, what you can do is, if you're an owner and you're hosting guests for the Super Bowl, certainly ask for some, you know, some sort of assumption of the risk document, some sort of indemnity agreement. You can combine them into one agreement. You can, you know, you can have two separate agreements, whatever it is. But the assumption of risk is, hey, look, you know, renting is inherently dangerous. Where there's a pool, there's stairs, there's whatever. You assume the risk that if somebody's injured, it's on you. We also have this indemnification clause. We want to have an indemnification clause or an indemnification agreement that says, hey, look, if I get busted by the city of Scottsdale, if I get fined because you have a party, because you go above and beyond what it means to be a good neighbor, and I get in trouble for it, you pay me and you indemnify me. And by the way, I get to keep your credit card information on file for the next 30 days to make sure that I don't get some nasty gram in the mail from whatever municipality that I'm in, and I get to charge your credit card if that happens. So what we're recommending to people is definitely put this in your listing, right? If you have a short-term rental, if you're on a site like Vrbo or Airbnb, you need to sort of disclose that you're going to have these requirements, and then actually present these to the people in some fashion, whether it's a click wrap agreement that they click off and agree to, or you hand it to them prior to them entering and getting keys to your property. They have to know that, number one, this is going to be a requirement, and then number two, they have to sign off on it. But those are the things that a lot of owners should be doing right now to protect themselves in light of the new statutes, in light of the risk associated with people coming in to party.
So I'm hearing you say these are in addition to whatever VRBO, Airbnb, whatever they already have included, because a lot of those already have kind of verbiage that's built into it. So you're just suggesting additional documentation to really clarify the responsibility of the person that's renting the property.
I would. If it was me and I was doing this, I absolutely would. So yes, there's certain standard language that's going to be included on any of these hosting sites that the visitor or the guest has to click through. But I always recommend having a document that goes above and beyond what it is that the hosting site is providing. The hosting site is there to really protect themselves and to make this sort of transaction fairly equal. Well, you know what? As an owner, I'm not willing to take on all that risk. I want you to sign off on additional items. I want you to make sure that you're following my rules. I want the ability to turn on my home alarm system. If you're overstaying, you're welcome to wake you up. Those types of things need to be in that separate agreement. The other thing too is we want to make sure we're calling these people guests. We don't want to call them tenants. Once we start calling them tenants, we may have to provide them with sort of tenants' rights or obligations under the Arizona Landlord-Tenant Act. And so we want to make sure that we're clear in defining that these are licensees or guests, or they have limited permission to be there. And so there are certain things that you can do to protect yourself now and as the Super Bowl comes up.
That is great information. And just the whole guest thing, I think that is tactical, and I appreciate that. So let's think it through. So I'm a guest, let's say that, and I am going to, let's say, rent a house in Scottsdale. What happens if the city of Scottsdale, if the seller didn't go through the protocol and didn't get the license and all that stuff? And maybe, I'm hearing some crazy prices on what these houses are going for, especially for the Super Bowl timeframe. Maybe I've already given the money down. What happens if the city of Scottsdale finds out? Is that just a matter of will they come in and kick the guest out? Or is it more just that the city will pursue the owner under a different kind of time frame? Do you have any sense about what that might look like?
Well, the new statutes become effective on the 8th. I don't see the city of Scottsdale coming in and taking guests out or coming in and giving guests too hard of a problem. I think what they'll do is they'll deal with it on a separate time frame. I don't know that they have the manpower to sort of do
Monitor.
Exactly that.
Yeah. Okay.
As long as the people are respectful, the guests are respectful. Yeah. I think what the authorities would probably do in a situation like that is just say, okay, look, here's your ticket, here's your fine. We don't even know what those tickets or violation notices even look like yet.
Right.
But I think that that's what they would probably do.
So interesting that this takes effect right prior to the Super Bowl and the waste management. I wonder if that was thought about.
Yeah, interesting timing by everybody here. I thought that too.
Yeah. Well, I think the great news is that we are going to have a ton of people coming into town. We do have sunshine in the winter, and I think that it's going to really help the economy. So that's a positive. But if you are an owner and you are going to be renting out your property, really follow the steps that Patrick's outlined. Contact the city. Make sure you know about these new regulations, because even if you've been an owner that's maybe been doing Airbnb for years, the point of this communication is that times have changed. The statutes have changed. The responsibilities as an owner that's going to be doing short-term rentals has changed. And you want to make sure you have the facts so you're protecting yourself. And then two, I just love the fact that you're talking about the assumption of risk and the indemnification document, and really just kind of going next level. So Patrick, thank you so much. We've included your information here. If anybody needs legal direction regarding real estate, Patrick is your guy. Patrick, we'll see you next time.
Thanks so much.